Howdy all, Wyrm here. The Ascians have been our primary antagonists for just about all of FF14's existence. From the manipulations of beast tribes, heralding cataclysms, and the creation of empires to serve their own ends, the Ascians have been a major part of the history that has shaped not only our story, but that of all of Etheyris. We knew going into Endwalker that the expansion was going to bring their story to a close. However, many, myself included, were left with questions after Endwalker. The primary one being, what happened to the rest of the Ascians that made up their membership? During Endwalker, we didn't face off against any of them save Fandaniel. In fact, most of them were not even mentioned, and the dialogue of the story seems to be pointing us in the direction of them being past tense with no real explanation. But why is that? Where did they go? What happened to these Ascians? In this video, we go over the Ascian membership and try to piece together their fate. Let's get a few facts out of the way first. The Ascians are comprised of the former membership of the Convocation of 14, or should we say 13, as the 14th member, Azem, vacated their seats due to being against their chosen path during the final days. The Ascians as an organisation would be formed after the Sundering. It began with Elidibus, Loghrif, and emet-selch, all members of the Convocation, who had escaped the effects of the Sundering with their souls intact. From then on, they would be known as the Unsundered. The rest of the Convocation's members were sundered along with Etheyris into 14 shards. Not long after these events, the Unsundered set to work forming the Ascian organisation. They sought out the sundered souls of their former Convocation members and aided them with the return of their memories. Once complete, these sundered Ascians took up their former titles and joined their ranks as Ascian Overlords. We don't know the full specifics of these sundered Ascians, but it's likely they are comprised of multiple merged soul shards, as the Ascians have a means to easily travel between the multiple reflections. While not as powerful as the Unsundered, with their original memories and ancient magic, they are beyond most other beings. Let's go over the Ascian membership, as well as the most recent info we have on each of them. We start off with the three we know the most about, the Unsundered. Loghrif was one of the primary antagonists we see during A Realm Reborn and Heavensward. He manipulated a number of events on the Source with the aim of weakening Hydaelyn. He is later undone during said machinations.
Has grown so strong in it as to deny us our power.
After Loghrif is defeated in combat by the Warrior of Light, the Archbishop of Ishgard uses the Eye of Nidhogg to transform himself into Primal King Thordan. Intent on ending strife, his first act was to kill Loghrif, striking him down and destroying him while also absorbing his etheric energy. To the best of our knowledge, this was the final end of Loghrif. Whether his soul was destroyed or returned to the Ethereal Sea is not known for certain. Next we have emet-selch. He's had a rather unique impact on the Source. Under the guise of Solus Zos Galvus, he ushered in the founding of the modern Guardian Empire, and its development into a vast and powerful nation.
The founding father was an Ascian, and he created the Empire solely for the purpose of sowing the seeds of chaos.
He reappeared in recent times in a younger form to manipulate world events, and played a major part in Shadowbringers. It's from him that we learn much about the Ascians' history, and their true goal of restoring Zodiark, their world, and their people. He meets his end in the Dream of Amaroth at the hands of the Scions and Warrior of Light. Accepting his fate, he utters,
Remember. Remember us. Remember that
we once lived.
Emet-selch thus accepts his fate and his soul joins that of his people in the Ethereal Sea. We meet him again in Endwalker when we went back in time to Elidibus. A much younger man at this time and a very different character, not weighed down by history.
I haven't the foggiest what you're talking about.
After the main events of that time, from us telling him about his future and the truth of the final days, emet-selch has his memories of those events sealed away by Hermes. It wasn't until his death in Shadowbringers and his return to the Ethereal Sea that his sealed memories were returned to him. So when we met him later on in Ultima Thule, his demeanour towards us goes through a major change.
Still, you must be commended. Our methods would not have brought mankind this far.
After he renders assistance to us alongside Elidibus, both he and emet-selch returned once more to the Ethereal Sea, but not before issuing one final challenge to the Warrior of Light.
Expand your horizons, go forth and seek discovery. As the bearer of Azem's crystal, you may consider your duty to see at least that much.
Then we have Elidibus. During his time on the Convocation and afterwards, he was known as the Emissary. Elidibus sacrificed himself during Zodiark's first summoning to become his core. Elidibus did most of his work in the shadows, manipulating events and people towards the Ascians' true goals. He made quite the mark on the source and its reflections during its storyline. He made Ardbert and his allies the Warriors of Darkness, and rescued beings from reflections like the World of Darkness, all with the goal of using them as pieces on a chessboard, only moving them at the right time. During our final confrontation with him while inhabiting the body of a past Warrior of Light, he states he barely remembers the world he came from.
I am Elidibus, and it is my duty to steer mankind and the very star upon their true course. This I swore to someone.
He doesn't remember the convocation or the promises they swore, but it doesn't deter him from his mission. Elidibus is defeated by the Warrior of Light and Grahatia atop of the Crystal Tower, using the tower itself to seal him away within it, thus bringing about his end. He reverts to his true form, where the Warrior of Light gives him the soul crystals of his Convocation comrades. Elidibus finally remembers them and his world, before finally fading away.
Stay strong. Keep the faith. At duty's end, we will meet again. We will. We will.
We meet him again in Endwalker, still sealed away in the tower while his aether dissipates. He shares with us information on Elidibus, and facilitates the creation of a door to the past, so that we can go there to learn the truth. To accomplish this, Elidibus uses what power he has remaining in the tower to open the portal at the cost of his own life. However, he was content with this decision, eager to rejoin his friends in the Ethereal Sea. Now, I have a very quick theory if you'll so indulge me. Not long after we unlock Pandemonium, we learn that Themis is Elidibus, a much younger version of him, either before taking his convocation seat, or he's brand new to it. The story never states as such, of course, but we put enough pieces together to establish this identity. Halfway through our dialogue with Elidibus in the Crystal Tower, we discuss Elidibus, and suddenly he remembers seeing us there.
Wait. I saw you there. In Elidibus.
This is likely his old memories catching up with him. Realizing that the warrior he met so long ago was actually us, he quickly went to aid us with going back, as he knew it was supposed to happen. It's kinda like what happened with the older emet-selch once he regains his memories. His entire demeanour towards us changes. Anyway, those are the 3 unsundered members of the Ascians, all of whom have passed on and will likely not be returning. We now move on to the Ascian Overlords. First, we have Pastorat. He made his first and only appearance during A Realm Reborn with his fellow Ascians in the Rift. We don't see him again after this, but we can assume he's still alive and active. Next is Wyrm. She played a major role in the attempted rejoining of the 13th Reflection with the Source. As the 13th was falling, she faced and defeated the Bringer of Light, Unukalhai, who was his world's last defender gifted with the Echo. She defeated Unukalhai, but the result of this was the world was flooded over with darkness, similar to how the first was flooded with light. The main difference is this process was complete, and the world fell and became the Void, which we now know today as the World of Darkness. This is where the Void's End originates, the darkness having transformed all of its inhabitants into void beasts. A random thought from me, but if you think about it, the 13th world is the first one we ever visited thanks to the Crystal Tower raids, happening long before our journey to the first. Wyrm failed her mission as the fallen world was now unfit to rejoin the Source. She later started to aid Loghrif, as he prepared the Source for other rejoinings, a way for her to redeem her failure on the 13th.
At their bidding, warring gods will shake the firmament, and your world will be consumed in the swelling storm of chaos.
She stands with Loghrif as they both face the Warrior of Light in Heavensward, even fusing with him via the Echo to form Ascian Prime. But even in this superior form, they are defeated.
Let us withdraw, Loghrif. That power remains to us, at least.
The Warrior of Light then traps Wyrm in a shard of white auracite, a means created to trap Ascian's soul so they can be fully destroyed. The Warrior of Light uses the Eye of Nidhogg to shatter the auracite, destroying Wyrm once and for all. Next is Altima. Like Pastaroth, he only makes his appearance in A Realm Reborn alongside his fellow Ascians, but isn't seen again after these events. However, during Stormblood, Gaia's Baelsar shows that he has his mask among the collection he wears on his person, which shows Altima had an encounter with the former Black Wolf, now turned Ascian hunter. We don't know if Gaia's destroyed him fully or just sent him back to the Rift, but the latter is more likely given what we know. We move now to Mitron. Mitron was regarded as a mystery until the events of Shadowbringers. His true name prior to the Convocation title of Mitron was Artemis. Apparently he was an expert in creating sea life before the final days. He and Loghrif were assigned to bring about the calamity of the first, so it could be rejoined to the Source.
Fools playing at heroes, all of you. Is this how you believe you can save your world?
During his battle with Ardbert, he was struck down with the latter's axe, which unleashed a flood of light that also transformed him into the Sin Eater we know as Eden. He remained this way for many years until being freed by Reen and Gaia. As Gaia was a reincarnation of Loghrif, he tried to restore her memories against Gaia's will. The end result was Mitron was defeated by the Warrior of Darkness. It's very likely after this defeat that Mitron's soul returned to the Rift in order to be reborn. His defeat at our hands was not enough to kill a standard Ascian as we've learned in the past. As a result, to the best of our knowledge, Mitron is either asleep in the Rift or currently active. Next is Emerloth. First documented appearance in the game timeline was when she tried to free the primary Eureka from its imprisonment on the Isle of Val. Galuf Baldessian and his allies cast a powerful spell over the island to stop her, which cast the island into the lifestream. Emerloth thus had her essence scattered into the lifestream itself. While it's likely this would have been enough to destroy her, she appears with her fellow Ascians in A Realm Reborn, which takes place after the events of the incident on the Isle of Val. We don't know if this is the same Emerloth, or another sundered shard of her that was ascended to Ascian status. As a result, she's likely still active, but we haven't seen her since. We move now to Nabriel's. First seen with his fellow Ascians in A Realm Reborn, he takes an antagonist role in the story early on.
We meet at last, warrior of light. I am Nabriales.
We encounter him after we lose Hydaelyn's blessing, which Nabriel takes note of and as such attacks the Rising Stones now that the Warrior of Light is weakened. He takes Tupsa Mati, former staff of Lewis Swa, with the intent to use it to cause another umbral calamity, and kidnaps Minfilia after she refuses to relinquish the staff. We follow him into the rift and succeed in getting both the staff and Minfilia back. As we return to the Rising Stones, Nabriel's follows. The Scions spring into action and immediately trap him in White Aura Sight. Then using the staff, we channel Aether into the Aura Sight, which shatters as a result and permanently destroys Nabriel's.
What trickery is this? What? No! It cannot end! I am eternal! I am immortal!
This either destroyed his soul completely or it returned to the Ethereal Sea. Now we have Loghrif. During the final days, Loghrif offered to sacrifice herself as a catalyst to summon Zodiark, but her lover, Mitron, convinced her not to. She was brought back after the Sundering when the Unsundered found one of her soul shards, and her memories were restored. Along with Mitron, she was assigned to bring about the calamity of the First. As they were actioning their plan, they were defeated by Ardbert. Loghrif was killed, and Mitron unleashed the Flood of Light. Strangely though, Loghrif's soul didn't return to the Rift, but instead reincarnated on the First as Gaia. Sometime later, Mitron attempts to restore Loghrif's memories and erase Gaia's. After a series of events, Loghrif's memories are not restored, and Gaia continues on. As a result of this, Loghrif is likely one we won't see again, but it's very plausible shards of her soul exist on other reflections. Next is Halmarut. They make their only appearance in A Realm Reborn alongside their fellow Ascians, but after this meeting, we don't see them again. Then came Dudalifon, another that makes their only appearance in A Realm Reborn alongside their fellow Ascians, but isn't seen again after this. Their mask, however, is among those in Gaius' collection, meaning both parties came to blows at some point, with Gaius either killing Dudalifon or sending them back to the Rift. Now the infamous Fandaniel.
I am Fandaniel, and may I say what a pleasure it is to finally make your acquaintance.
As we well know, Fandaniel was the leader of the Telophoroi. He's a more unusual character, however.
Ah, money, 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 the great motivator. There is simply no better way to move men and expedite plans than with its alluring glint. Would you not agree?
The original Fandaniel, whose real name was Hermes, was sundered like most of his fellow Convocation members during the Sundering. His soul shards would continue on in the Source and its reflections until the end of the Third Astral Era. His soul on the Source was currently reincarnated as a Mon of the Allegan Empire. Emet-selch offered to ascend him to Ascian ranks and restore his past memories. Something went wrong during this process, however. The memories were implanted, but the ones of Amon appeared to be the dominant, and even though he joined the Ascians, he was ever seeking to pursue the goals of the late Allegan Emperor Xande, their destruction of the world.
My heart's desire is to lay this half-broken world to waste, leaving nary a fleck of dust behind!
He did this in Endwalker by freeing Zodiark and merging with him, forcing the Warrior of Light to defeat him, which was part of his goal. When Zodiark was defeated, Fandaniel's soul returned to the Ethereal Sea. We defeat him one final time when we venture into the sea to find Hydaelyn. Defeated once more, his soul dissipates into oblivion. Alongside the Unsundered and the Overlords, the Ascians have a number of other individuals in their membership, referred to as minor Ascians. We see a few of these during the story, such as the Ascians of the 12th Pentacle, Sword, Staff and Chalice. We also see a masked mage, which is assumed to be an Ascian, but is never unveiled. The most well known and influential minor Ascian is Travaset. He made his first appearance during the original game 1.0. During this time, he was seen manipulating the Sahagin beast tribe towards Ascian ends. He is last seen when he stole a sealed rock key from Mishola before vanishing. We learn later in Heavensward that Travaset was the one responsible for instigating the summoning of Alexander, a primal located in the Dravanian hinterlands. He influenced an individual named Maid, and gave her the magic horn he stole from Mishola in 1.0, and had her place it in Alexander's core. We don't see him again, or even have mention of him after these events, but like the rest, he can assume to be alive. And that is every member of the Ascian organization we have current knowledge of, making up the 13 seats of the Convocation and the Ascian hierarchy as we understand it, as well as those who serve them. From this breakdown, we see there are many Ascian overlords that are unaccounted for. Halmarut, Dudefion, Altima, and Pastorat are the prime examples, only ever showing up once or twice in small cutscenes early in the game's story, but never mentioned again. However, as I discussed earlier, Gaius had many masks in his possession, including some red and black masks, showing at the least some of these Ascians were defeated by him. This begs the question of what happened to them. Are they still active? It's full theory mode time. There are a number of theories to explain their absence. One is that they are still active, but have chosen not to take any actions. This one holds water for me. After Zodiark's defeat, the ultimate goal of the Ascian organization was formed upon came to an end. They could be idle for now or even working in the shadows. This leaves the door open for them to play a role in the future stories as antagonists, or even as potential allies depending on the circumstances. We see a prime example of this in Fandaniel, who had already been making moves, but upon discovering that all three Unsundered were now gone, he put his plans into full gear, in acts that the Unsundered would have tried to stop themselves.
That the last of the Unsundered is gone.
This begs another question, however. Is it possible that most of them threw their lot in with Fandaniel? The issue with this theory is we only ever see Fandaniel. We see no other Ascians interact with him or fight against us, and not one of them appears in Endwalker. If any of them were still pursuing the goal of completing Zodiark, they would have likely taken steps to stop Fandaniel, or even showed up when he tried to unbind him.
A creature of pure instinct, wanting for guidance.
The entire time we were on the moon, I was honestly waiting for another Ascian to show up, objecting to Fandaniel's and Xenos' actions, or even ones that were allied with them. But neither of those ever happened. One plausible theory is Fandaniel actually eliminated the other Ascians, as he saw they would be a roadblock in his plans. This theory doesn't hold much water, however. I doubt he alone would have been able to take out that many of his fellow Ascians, unless he caught them all by surprise. But even then, we know killing an Ascian, let alone multiple Ascians, isn't an easy feat. On that subject is the many masks Gaius has in his possession. We don't get the full story of how he came to possess these masks, and what the end result was for some of the Ascians he took them from.
I would see each and every one dragged into the light and put to the sword.
As I discussed earlier, he either killed them fully or sent them back to the Rift. To the best of our knowledge, he doesn't have the means to fully kill an Ascian. One of the few methods we know thus far is via White Oracite, But it's not out of the realm of possibility that he could come into possession of this information, or indeed a means of replicating the effects. Now then, onto the main reason we have to suspect that they are either no longer active or no longer alive. When we are in Ultima Thule and we summon emet-selch, he turns to us and states,
And so, as a show of respect to the last of us, I make this declaration. You will not end our journey. That is our answer. The answer of all lives of Etheyris, past and present.
This part made me think that all the Ascians were either Ascians no more, or had moved on, or they were actually dead. Why else would emet-selch state the last of us? Is it possible that emet-selch doesn't view the Overlords as Emerothians? His demeanour changed of course in Endwalker, but we know how he felt about sundered individuals. A prime example is us.
Ah, that trick of the light. You are a broken husk, nothing more.
But my last question is the most important one. What do you think about this topic? Let me know your opinion in the comments. If you enjoyed this latest video, give that like button a tap. And feel free to subscribe if you haven't yet, cause I have many more videos to come. Thanks all, and now, as always, have a good one.